Is that this bill be now read a second time. I call the member for Corangamite.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak to the bill which will deliver our government's 2013 election commitment to amend the Australian War Memorial Act 1980 to prohibit the levying of entry or parking fees at the Australian War Memorial premises in Campbell in the ACT. And welcome to you, Mr Deputy Speaker. At the 2013 election, the government committed to legislate to prohibit the levying of entry and parking fees at the Australian War Memorial. And, Mr Deputy Speaker, if we go back to 2010, it was revealed that the Memorials Council was being forced to consider charging entry and parking fees, as well as to consider closing one day a week under some pressure because of the previous government's failure to properly resource the Australian War Memorial. And as a result, Mr Deputy Speaker, in February 2011, the Coalition announced that, if elected, it would legislate to prevent the levying of parking and entry fees at the memorial. This is an incredibly important commitment, another important commitment, Mr Deputy Speaker, we are delivering. As we've heard from the member for Lingiari and his contribution, the memorial must be a place for all Australians to visit free of charge, not only to pay their respects to the fallen, but to learn the important story of Australia, of Australians at war. If we are to pass on to future generations the story of the Anzacs who served at Gallipoli and at campaigns over a century of service, then we must ensure that these stories can be told and commemorated at no charge. Mr Deputy Speaker, this is particularly important for the hundreds and hundreds of schools which visit the memorial as part of school trips to Canberra each year. We must do all we can to ensure the Australian War Memorial's invaluable collection is not only protected for the future, but also able to be enjoyed by all visitors at no cost to the memorial. As we've heard in, I think, the fine contribution from the member for Lingiari, the Australian War Memorial is the nation's home of commemoration, reflection and remembrance. It is unique as both a memorial and a museum. Its cloisters contain the names of 102,000 Australians who have been killed in action as a result of service in war in the Australian Defence Force. The museum contains a world-class trove of memorabilia collected by soldiers, sailors, airmen and women, and left in perpetuity to the people of Australia as a reminder of the story of Australians at war. The galleries feature Australia's military engagements from Australia's colonial engagements in Africa in the 19th century through until recent conflicts in Iraq, Afghanistan and on various peacekeeping operations. And as we've heard from the member for Lingiari in his contribution, in February next year, a $30 million redevelopment of the First World War galleries will open. This is the first major redevelopment of the galleries in 30 years. And the much-loved dioramas depicting Australians at war at Gallipoli, on the Western Front and in Palestine have been upgraded, and this will be an even greater reason to visit the memorial from, of course, early next year. Every year, Mr Deputy Speaker, close to 1 million people visit the Australian War Memorial, including almost 200,000 school students. Of course, around the country, Anzac Day services are becoming more and more popular. More and more people are attending Anzac Day services to reflect, to commemorate and to remember, including, of course, the national ceremony and the National Remembrance Day at the Australian War Memorial, which in this year, 2014, there were unprecedented numbers of people who did attend. In fact, Mr Deputy Speaker, in June 2014, the Australian War Memorial was listed by TripAdvisor as the #1 tourist destination in Australia. It was also the only Australian institution listed in the world top 20, ranked at 17. And at this point, I also want to concur with the member for Lingiari's recognition of both Kerry Stokes, his incredible contribution to the War Memorial, and also the wonderful leadership of Dr. Brendan Nelson, who is doing an absolutely outstanding job at this very important time in our nation's history. And of course, Mr Deputy Speaker, the centenary of Anzac next year will be the most significant period of commemoration, I think it's fair to say, in our nation's history. The 25th of April 2015 will mark 100 years since that first fateful landing at Gallipoli. This will be a very important and special time for every Australian, young and old. Mr Deputy Speaker, some 15 years ago I visited Gallipoli, not for Anzac Day, at another time of the year, but even standing on those beaches and looking up in awe at the cliffs, it was incredible. I don't think that there was a person who stood with us at that time who didn't have tears in their eyes. It is a place where so many Australians visit, and it is incredible to see that the story of the Anzacs continues to resonate as it does so much today. Mr Deputy Speaker, in my electorate of Corangamite winds the world's largest war memorial, the Great Ocean Road. As I said in my first speech, this is a journey made possible by the sweat and toil of returned soldiers of the Great War who built this iconic road between 1919 and 1932. But I think at this time also it's very important not to forget that we must pay tribute over the next few years to the service of all men and women of the Australian Defence Forces who have served our country over the past 100 years. And on the 18th of August 2016 marks another very significant day, the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Long Tan, Vietnam Veterans Day. This will be a very important opportunity to pay tribute to the service of Vietnam vets, a contingent of men and women who were not properly recognised, many of whom were condemned and ostracised and paid the price, Mr Deputy Speaker, for many, many years. In fact, one of my staff members, Kerry Ridgway, Mr Deputy Speaker, is a Vietnam vet, and we went along to a service at Remembrance Day just a few weeks ago, and he came along with me and wore his medals with absolute pride, and it was absolutely wonderful to see. Of course, Mr Deputy Speaker, the government is rolling out a very important program commenced by the previous government, the Anzac Centenary Local Grants Program, which is all about recognising the incredible commitment that communities throughout my electorate and of course around the nation are making in commemorating the centenary of Anzac. And of course $125,000 has been made available to each federal electorate to help fund various commemorative programs. And I do particularly want to commend and pay tribute to Senator the Honourable Michael Ronaldson, Minister assisting the Prime Minister for the Centenary of Anzac, Minister for Veterans Affairs, who increased the amount by some $25,000 in each electorate, and I must say is doing an incredible job representing our government at this very important time. And I just thought I'd talk about a couple of the projects, Mr Deputy Speaker, which have already been announced. Bannockburn Primary School has been awarded some $3,000, and that will help to enhance their remembrance garden. It was wonderful. I went along and we announced the grant with the children of Bannockburn Primary School. It's actually a school that I'm a great supporter of. It's wonderful to see that a new primary school is being delivered by the Victorian government. I'm fighting very hard to make sure they get their secondary school too, but really fantastic to see that school's dedication to commemorating the centenary of Anzac, a really wonderful project. Another project we've announced in Apollo Bay, some $2,000 has gone to the Apollo Bay Arts Incorporated for a literature reading event which has already been held called Warm Winter Words. And again, that commemorates 100 years since the outbreak of the First World War by exploring the Anzac centenary and its connections with Indigenous Australians. And at that event, the guest speakers included Professor Mick Dodson, Bruce Elder and Bruce Pascoe. wonderful to be able to recognise and support that important event. Just a couple of weeks ago, I went along to Belmont Fire Brigade, and Belmont Fire Brigade have received some $3,200 to support a project paying tribute to some 9 members of the brigade who fought in World War I. And it was absolutely wonderful. And there were, of course, both volunteers there and also firefighters, full-time firefighters, how much focus and how much pride they had in celebrating the achievements of previous members of the brigade who had so proudly represented them in the First World War. And it was really a very special time for me, I have to say. There are many other wonderful applications that have been made and will be rolled out over the next few months, and I thought I'd just mention some of the great projects that are before us at the moment. Ceres Community Organisation is looking to restore its First World War memorial gates. Belmont Primary School has applied for funding to sort of build a special commemorative area and to install a new flagpole. The Colac RSL sub-branch is hoping to restore its war memorial site at Cressy Recreation Reserve, including a new flagpole, and the money will greatly assist upgrades to the site, including recording the details of soldiers from both World Wars. The Torquay RSL has been working incredibly hard, another great project, to construct a memorial garden at the Torquay Bowls Club, and recently that's been upgraded, and a great job, I have to say, by the member for South Barwon in delivering that commitment to see a major upgrade of the Torquay Bowls Club, where the Torquay RSL is now home. And so that's a wonderful project. Another fantastic project, the Military Historical Society of Geelong does an incredible military reenactment, and they're looking to do a very large-scale event next year. Christian College is also looking to invest in a remembrance garden. The Torquay Historical Society, and I want to say something about the Torquay Anzac Day service. That is an incredible service. Some 15,000 people gather at Point Danger on the cliffs at Torquay, and the Torquay community, the RSL, do an incredible job holding a very, very moving service, as do so many of the other RSLs across Corangamite. They're looking to install a new plaque to commemorate local World War I diggers at Point Danger. There are other projects by the Lawn RSL. Surf Coast Shire are looking to create a Winchelsea walk, and this particular walk is very significant. It will honour 64 Victoria Cross recipients from World War I. The first recipient was, of course, Albert Jacker, who was born in Winchelsea, and that too, Mr Deputy Speaker, is a wonderful project. And there are some other fantastic projects: Golden Plains Shire, the Borough of Queenscliff, the Light and Sound Production Services, they're needing some assistance. So this is just an array of the projects that we are hoping to fund as part of our local commemorative grants project. And I just have to say, in relation to Queenscliff, I want to recognise the commitment from the Liberal candidate for Bellarine, Ron Nelson, who just yesterday announced a new visitors hub and cafe and other facilities at the Ocean View car park where the Anzac Day service is held. That will provide power and really give a lot more facilities for that very important service, of course, overlooking the back beach of Queenscliff and overlooking the Rip, a very, very important part of Queenscliff's history. So that was a great commitment, part of a $3.6 million commitment for the Queenscliff community, as I say, made yesterday by Ron Nelson. Mr Deputy Speaker, at this time I just want to take this opportunity to thank the members of the Anzac Centenary Local Grants Program Electorate Committee for Corangamite, Graham Rawlins, Councillor Bob Merriman and Keith Hankin. The committee has worked with me to assess these applications. They've done a wonderful job. It's very much appreciated. They've applied great due diligence, and I really do want to express my thanks for their work. And just very briefly, I'd like to congratulate Keith and his wife, Elaine, who have just celebrated 65 years of marriage. Mr Deputy Speaker, the Anzac Centenary Local Grants Program recognises the importance of local commemorative events at this very special time in our nation's history. This is a very important bill as part of that, and for these reasons I'd like to commend the bill to the House. Thank you.
I thank the member.